Welcome, Wildcat families, to another edition of Cat Chat Live. My name is Nikki Jenkins. I'm the Director of Parent and Family Engagement here at the University of Kentucky. We are very excited to talk today a little bit about student homesickness. We know that around this time of year, students start sort of missing home, and you may see your student exhibiting some symptoms of homesickness. So we want to make sure that you have resources and tools to help support your student during this time. Throughout the presentation, if you have questions for our guest, feel free to put those questions in the comments, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can at the end of the presentation. If we can't get to your question, then we will be sure to answer your question afterwards or connect with you in some way. This presentation will be recorded and will be available on the UK Parent and Family Association Facebook page, as well as our YouTube page after the presentation. So without further ado, I will hand over the presentation to Tamariel Brooks from our Tracks area.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Nikki, for that introduction. Again, my name is Tamariel Brooks, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been with the University of Kentucky for 7 years. The majority of my tenure here has been spent at the UK Counseling Center. And for the better part of a year, I have been involved with working with the TRACS program. TRACS stands for Triage, Referral, Assistance, and Crisis Support. TRACS is a physical and virtual one-stop shop for a quick referral to support students for a range of mental health needs and crisis services for students here at the University of Kentucky. The information that I'll be presenting to you today will be information that's actually applicable to both students and families. I thought we'd start out talking a little bit about what is homesickness and sort of understanding what homesickness might look like and normalize the experience. So homesickness is the emotional distress you might feel when you're new and in familiar surroundings. You miss your community and ordinary routine, and as a result, you might yearn for these old comforts. The strength of those feelings might catch a student off guard, especially if away from home for the first time. Usually homesickness fades with time, and research has found in college students, feelings of homesickness begin to taper off somewhere around after 1 to 6 weeks. So typically, and this is not indicative of every student who experiences this, but typically by the end of the semester, most of these symptoms should or do subside. And if they persist, then we would encourage a student to talk with someone further. So while this is not an exhaustive list of homesickness symptoms, I do want to point out a few that are fairly common. Sadness and crying, anxiety, anger and irritability, lack of motivation. Other symptoms might include disorientation or difficulty concentrating. It's important to know that homesickness symptoms can also manifest as physical symptoms. Some examples of those symptoms might include headaches, physical discomfort, nausea, or other digestive issues, sleeping too much or too little, lack of energy. So if some of these symptoms coincide with the relocation to a new place, chances are your student is feeling homesick. Thankfully, there are strategies out there to help with coping, just needing to find the right one that works best for you. So we're going to talk a little bit about some tips that could help in coping with homesickness. I think first and foremost, it's helpful for students to realize, and parents alike, to realize that homesickness is perfectly normal, especially if this is your first time away from home. This is pretty normal, and it might be one might find themselves wanting to call a lot, or looking at old pictures and reminiscing about family times. And again, that is perfectly normal. It may not help the student overcome feelings of homesickness as quickly, but certainly we want to talk a little bit more about how, if this does manifest for your student, what they can do to cope. On number two, we're going to talk about changing perspective. And basically what that means is finding opportunities in your new location. Um, while being at the University of Kentucky, there's a lot of opportunities to become involved with organizations and activities, which we will talk about a little bit later. But if a student is able to maybe start experiencing their emotions, and allowing themselves to feel those emotions, it could diminish some of the feelings of homesickness. So that does connect with number three in terms of talking about how you feel. That could be with a roommate, that could be with a professional. Again, it's just important to be able to talk about those emotions, and even with parents as well. Distraction. It could be helpful with taking a walk or cleaning your room, anything that might put a little bit of distance between those feelings of sadness, and letting them get a little bit of time to hopefully subside through distraction. On number five, getting out of comfort zone. This is something I would suggest parents could also help their student with, in encouraging getting out of comfort zone. That could include inviting perhaps another student for a study session. That could include something like talking with someone at the bus stop. Again, with more practice, and the hope is that a student becomes more comfortable with getting out of that comfort zone that they may have felt around familiar people prior to coming to campus. Finding new groups and connecting with peers. I think that it could be helpful for your student to seek out others who have shared interests. That could be, again, accomplished through organizations and clubs and other campus activities. Developing self-care practices is going to be very significant as we talk about moving towards, or maintaining rather, healthy habits such as sleep hygiene, good sleep hygiene, and exercise. Viewing new experiences, the new college experience, the new being away from home experience, as a challenge and not so much as a threat. And again, this is where parents can become very instrumental in supporting that point of view, that will look at some of the new things that you're involved in or could get involved in, new friends that you might make, that while perhaps a little scary, it could be beneficial for you in the end. Attending class, what I'd like to say about that is, as a tip to cope with homesickness, again, we're talking a little bit about connecting with others. Is it possible in coping with homesickness, a student could develop a connection or a conversation with the student next to them in the classroom? Not attending class, self-isolating, sort of really reduces the opportunity to connect and meet with others. Getting involved on campus life, really, really important in building community and pushing yourself to connect with others, and engaging may help you feel less isolated and building community. And then finally, staying in touch, but not overdoing it. While it might be tempting to have daily phone calls and daily chats and daily FaceTimes with family members and friends back home, it's encouraged for the student to try to develop some space, or create space rather, in developing their new life. So what to avoid and how parents can help in the adjustment process. So we'll take some time to look at this briefly. Again, as we talk about coping, taking on too much, how that could be problematic for a student in trying to deal with homesickness. You're not taking time necessarily to process feelings if you're taking on too much. Disconnecting from support network. You're going through a big transition and will need the love and support of folks around you, both back home and also here on campus. So having a solid network to lean on, even from afar, can help with problem solving. Number three, isolating yourself. Again, wanting to really emphasize the need or the importance of developing social connections. It can feel really easy to isolate. And again, that's where students may start getting down the road of feeling depressed or anxious. So again, we want to support that idea of becoming as involved as possible, and connecting with others into the campus community. With being impulsive, it may feel tempting to want to just leave, because feeling so overwhelmed about feelings of homesickness. Definitely want to encourage taking time to stop and think about a decision to leave, in terms of giving yourself a little bit of time to adjust, right? As we think about how the research anyway suggests that this may wane over 4 to 6 weeks or a semester. Really want to be intentional to slow down, maybe seek out support in getting some ideas or some suggestions about how to cope better with that discomfort, instead of maybe making an impulsive decision to leave the institution. And just seeking support and advice, right? And making the best decision. Neglecting mental and physical well-being can really get in the way also. We want to encourage your student to take care of themselves, and in all ways, mentally, physically, to help manage emotions. So we will take a targeted look here of how also parents can help and be part of this supportive process. So first and foremost, don't panic. It can be really hard for for parents to deal with their student calling or texting, not really knowing if it's an emergency, not really knowing what really is going on. So remember that it's possible your student is just having a hard day and need to vent. Encourage your student to get involved in campus life. I've alluded to that several times throughout the presentation. And again, that may take a little bit longer for some students than others, but there really is a lot to get involved in if interested in here at the University of Kentucky. You want to listen and ask questions as a parent. Sometimes students just need to know that there's a supportive listener on the other end, and that you care. Don't ride to the rescue. Like, it can really be tempting to rush to the side of your homesick student. You may want to help them in setting some social goals, some things that we've already talked about, such as connecting with students in their natural environment. So maybe considering encouraging your student in that regard versus running to the rescue. Reminding your student that home is still there for them. That could include scheduling visits, having some predetermined times, maybe visiting home 1 or 2 times before the next semester break. Being careful, parents, not to be too available. Your student might miss home a little less if you maybe set some small no contact goals, whatever that might look like between you and your student, and sort of helping them ease a little bit more into the new environment that they're in. Number 7, when we're talking about not being part of the problem, what we're really getting at here is for some parents, not making their student feel guilty in any sort of way for having left, because that could add another additional layer of burden and stress to the student who's already struggling with adjusting to the new environment and working through feelings of homesickness. If possible, postpone changes. That could look like not immediately turning the student's room into a sewing room per se, waiting a little bit of time for that adjustment period before making any major changes, especially with regard to their home environment that they would have been used to, such as their room, for example. Send a little love the old-fashioned way. I'm thinking care packages with that particular suggestion. Any sort of like little mementos, or just creating an environment, messages for your student that you still love and care about them, in some what we would call old-fashioned ways, like a care package. If you're going to bake cookies, maybe baking some for your student and the roommate. And then most importantly, understanding that homesickness is hard, and it is also especially hard on parents. I think that there could be a challenge to some degree in balancing between helping your student navigate this difficult time and not enabling them. But we definitely want to normalize the experience for your student and for you as a parent as well. But with a little guidance and support, it's hope that you and your college student will come through just fine. So I'll end here this afternoon with some resources and opportunities for you and your student. As we discussed throughout this presentation, there's a host of ways your student can get involved with activities here at the University of Kentucky. I do want to make mention that in the event that homesickness symptoms with your student do not subside and it becomes extremely distressing, there are services such as the UK Counseling Center or Talkspace, whereby your student could sit and speak with someone further on these types of issues. I do want to share with you some information if your student does find themselves needing something a little bit more than what I've suggested today. If a student were to be referred to the counseling center for some brief therapy on this particular issue, it is suggested that they come through tracks first. That is sort of the point of entry for all students who get referred to the most appropriate service on campus that would help meet their need. So there is the UK Counseling Center, there is Tracks that also does some brief therapy around these issues. And also there on your screen, there is a link for Talkspace, which is a new intervention free to University of Kentucky students who would like to text or video chat with a therapist. So I thank you for your time, and I'm open to any other questions that might be out there for me this afternoon.
Great, thank you so much, Muriel. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments section and we will try to answer those. We did have one question come in that really looks at off-campus students. The question is about if your student is living off campus and they are experiencing some of these types of symptoms, are there additional resources out there for off-campus students, or what recommendations do you have specifically for off-campus students?
Okay, so I would like to be clear that even if a student lives off campus, they are still eligible for services that I've discussed today. So it doesn't matter if a student is off campus, if they're deemed appropriate after assessment for the counseling center, or they want to use the free text video talk space platform, or the Let's Talk drop-in service hosted around campus in different locations listed on the UK Counseling website. Those resources are still available at no charge to even off-campus students. I can say that in speaking about off-campus resources, should a student come through tracks, and during that evaluation, it's determined that there's a higher level of need beyond the counseling center and or one of these resources on your screen, then we would work with the student and getting connected to someone within the community. However, again, just the most important thing is to be mindful off campus or on campus, these services are available to your student.
Great. And then we had a couple of questions coming in specifically around transfer students. And for example, if a student is transferring in as a first year student, but they're a junior, how do they find people, you know, their own age or other juniors? And I think, you know, the best way to do that, of course, is to get involved, right? If your student is not sure if they want to join a club or organization, but they're just looking for other students, there's also a program through our Student Orgs and Activities office where we have involvement advisors, where students can go and speak one-on-one with a student and say, look, this is what I'm looking for. Can you point me in the right direction? So that might be something specifically for your student if they are a junior and just joining UK and are trying to find other people in their same area. But that involvement is really going to be key for all students, but especially for those who are transferring in or living off campus. It might take a little bit more for them to, you know, put themselves out there and get involved, but it's very, very important for that. All right, let's see if we have any other questions. I feel like we may have answered most of them. If you have a question that you have not put in the comments and you would like to email parents@uky.edu, we'd be happy to answer your questions or connect you to Muriel. But Muriel, do you have any last words of wisdom for our families?
I would just encourage being as patient as possible with the transition process. Again, there is no hard and fast time frame by which this might subside for your particular student. I think that the takeaway is normalizing the experience, and between you as the parent and then us folks here at UK who also have your students' best interest at heart, we will together work towards helping mitigate some of the homesickness symptoms or issues that your student might be dealing with. So between that collaborative approach and also knowing that it will subside and get better, that is my hope for you as parents and for you as students as well.
And Muriel, do you have any advice for families who maybe their student has not really been willing to put themselves out there and ask for help? Do you have any words of encouragement for families and how to get their students to take that step?
The first thing that comes to my mind on that particular question, Nikki, would inquire as to what might be the barriers or what's keeping you from seeking support and the resources, the opportunities that are available. That would be my starting point. Just coming from a place of curiosity to what might be those barriers are, and being able to listen and actively listen to what those are for that student. And so I'm hopeful, or perhaps after having that conversation and exploring that with the student, and it could be a variety of things that keeps them from reaching out. I think that's the first step in hopefully your student becoming more comfortable with reaching out to resources here on campus, and perhaps even following up, following up with them about, did you go to Let's Talk? Did you meet with someone at Tracks? Did you say hi to the student sitting next to you in the classroom? So yes, the short answer is coming from a place of curiosity as to barriers or challenges that might be keeping your student from reaching out or accepting the support and the help that is here.
And I know that I've seen a lot of students who kind of fear the unknown, and sometimes just having a conversation to help prepare them for the conversations they need to have can be really helpful too. I have students that come into my office who need to do a task, and if I'll sit down with them and go step by step, reviewing how they need to prepare for that task, they feel more inclined to do that. So I think that could also be helpful as well.
Absolutely. And I'll add on and piggyback on that piece with the Tracks referral form. That could be a task in helping your student in completing the online form to get seen by someone at Tracks. It could be a one-time visit. It could be 3 or 4. But yeah, and if we're talking task, that could be a task that's pretty concrete, filling out the form or calling Tracks to schedule an appointment.
Yeah, and breaking it down to smaller things so that it's less overwhelming. Yeah.
Indeed. Absolutely. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Mariel. I appreciate your time today. This was really great information. I hope families at home enjoyed this as much as I did. Want to let you know that our next Cat Chat Live session will be next week, next Wednesday, the 13th at 12:30 p.m. and we will be reviewing Family Weekend. So if you are planning to come to Family Weekend, that is going to be a great one for you to see so that you know what to expect. And we'll break it down to small tasks for you to make it easier on your family to enjoy the weekend. So in the meantime, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to email parents@uky.edu. And this presentation will be made available on Facebook and YouTube later today. Thank you all so much and have a great day. Go Cats!